Greetings from Argentina. Today we will share with you the preliminary results of an ongoing investigation on classroom assessment activities to promote self-regulated science learning. Research shows the deep links between formative assessments and self-regulated science learning. Specifically, the last 20 years of investigation have provided both theoretical and empirical evidence that supports the advantages of using classroom assessment in a formative perspective and self-regulated learning. Doing so implies designing and implementing activities in which students can set their own academic goals, appropriate the learning assessment targets for each subject content based both on internal and external motivation, plan what to do in order to achieve these goals and targets, appropriate the assessment and marking criteria that they could use to monitor and to adjust their learning processes while they are learning, give and provide feedback and feed forward, and of course self-co and peer assess and evaluate. Our investigation is aimed at characterizing classroom assessment activities to promote self-regulated science learning. As part of a design-based investigation and evaluation program, together with an instructional framework for science teachers, were implemented with 7th graders at a bilingual school in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The implementation of the program involved the coordinated work of 10 teachers of different school subjects, some in Spanish and some in English, myself, the students' families, and of course the school administrators. Before and during the implementation of the program, different workshops aimed at acquiring the theoretical basis of self-regulated learning and formative assessment were conducted, as well as one-to-one meetings to support and to provide tailored guidance to the teachers involved in the evaluation program. Apart from that, some school assessment standards and practices were revised and modified. For instance, we agreed on working out together with the students the assessment targets for each specific subject content and not to use number marks within terms to inform the progress towards these targets. To collect information about the impact of the implementation of the program in the teachers' conceptions of evaluation and in their real practices, surveys and interviews were held. Regards the instructional framework, it consisted on cycles of teaching, learning and assessing activities covering the main processes involved in self-regulated learning. These activities also provided a wide and varied register, which is still being analyzed in order to determine which activities best promote self-regulated learning. The framework included, for instance, activities that show how students appropriate their learning goals, what they have to do, what they know and what they still have to learn, logbooks in which students recorded not only the activities they were involved in, but also the strategies they used, and a metacognitive analysis of the strategies, group work organizers and evaluation to regulate learning when working with others, peer assessment and self-evaluation and marking, always related to preset criteria. Specifically, self-evaluation and marking were done at the end of each term. So preliminary results show that students who successfully appropriate the assessment targets are capable of planning and implementing ways to achieve them, in contrast to those who do not. Logbooks and group organizers proved to be really powerful tools for the development of learning strategies and to receive and provide feedback and feed forward. Peer and self-assessment tasks were really and highly valued by students. They remarked that the relevance of having clear and consensual criteria to know exactly what they are expected to do and to learn, and to modify everything they need to in order to succeed. And finally, self-evaluation and marking activities show that if students are allowed to appraise their learning performance and outcomes, they can honestly select and argue a mark based on self-reflection and judgment. These kind of activities can also help bridging the gap between formative assessment and marking, whether we like it or not. It comes a moment when we must certify knowledge at school, when we must mark, and this is maybe a way of making numbers meaningful to teachers and to students. Although data is still undergoing analysis, we can conclude that students easily and eagerly engage in assessment for learning tasks. But on the other hand, many teachers still show reluctance to change their assessment practices. At the beginning of the implementation of this assessment program at school, most of the teachers involved were really enthusiastic. They did recognize that having clear and consensual assessment targets and criteria really helped students to regulate their learning, and also helped them to recognize what each student needed. But as time went by, most of them slowly went back to their old and well-known traditional assessment practices. One of the reasons that could explain this situation is the fact that some of the assessment strategies that have proved to best promote self-regulated learning are really time-demanding. At least in my country, in Argentina, middle and high school teachers work in most than one institution. This means that they could have 100 or maybe 200 students. So they have to use a lot of extra school time to plan, to assess, to provide feedback. So changing classroom assessment is much more than just changing the way in which we assess. The whole foundations of teaching and learning must be revised, focusing on each unique classroom environment. So we really believe that tailored instructional frameworks to fit each classroom environment have to be developed. So maybe the challenge for researchers to face is providing a set of activities and strategies from which teachers could choose those that better serve the purpose of assessment for learning in each unique classroom environment. So thank you very much for listening.